Welcome, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you today with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. This is her podcast, and I get to interview her. How cool is that? So, my name is Cheryl Brewster of The Intuitive Life. I inspire conscious changemakers around the globe to live their deepest truth. And so, I am so excited. When I met Michelle, we connected like that, and something really wonderful percolated between us. She asked me to introduce this podcast for her. So, here we are. So, I have season 4 with Dr. Michelle Greenwell. And here's what some of her students have to say about her work. Michelle and I go way back to the dance days, and she opened my eyes to a whole new world that was life-changing for me, in which I trained under her My Touch for Health background. She is calm, positive, inspiring, and her wealth of knowledge is off the charts, which she loves to share. Another one, Dr. Michelle Greenwell's knowledge and understanding of the connection between how the body works and how to increase its energy, function, and healing is incredible. Now, I'm very excited to learn more about that because that's what intrigued me about Michelle when I first met her. And a couple more testimonials just to let you know your cards have come up for every session, bar one that I have done since they arrived. Today, my client had to read the selected affirmations before they were placed on the heart chakra for the correction. Isn't that cool? Finally, I am sipping away on your latest tea blend, and I have to say, I have not enjoyed a cup of tea like this before. Wow, the flavor is amazing, and I love the affirmations. So, as you listen today, enjoy getting to know Dr. Greenwell and the many creative gifts that she shares with the world through her programs, publications, and products. Have you got your cup of tea ready? Let's go. Let's get to know Dr. Michelle Greenwell. So, Michelle, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. It's so lovely to have you introduce, and it's interesting listening to those testimonials that have come in because they're so diverse, but
Mhm.
they're so interesting the impact everybody's had in their life by playing. And that's one of my objectives is to get people back to playing. So thank you for sharing those. Do you have your cup of tea ready?
Well, I am drinking West Vancouver water today. So,
In a
so
clear glass.
I need to get some of your tea because I have to say, Michelle, one of the things that just so drew me to you was how you work with all these different elements to create a cohesiveness. So I'm really excited to learn more from you today.
Awesome. Well, it was you sip on your Vancouver water. I have made my Cape Breton water into Salty Harbor. So this is a new
Mm.
one off the Harmony Blends. So for those people that are listening for the first time coming into season 4, I own the Cape Breton Tea Company, and our teas are put together based on specific intentions and the way the herbs work together in harmony. And so what I wanted to share about this particular blend is, first of all, it's a rooibos and a green tea. So it's a high antioxidant. It has the opportunity to transform cell structure by bringing more oxidation in and trying to get rid of those free radicals that are roaming through the system. Now that's the science part, but I don't like to talk about science as much as I like to talk about how does it make you feel. So
Mm.
I wanted to pull out 2 ingredients. So we've got stinging nettle and we've got anise. And
Mm.
stinging nettle clears your thinking and opens your heart for your spiritual connection. And as we were going into what we were going to talk about today, I thought, okay, that's a match for how we want to feel. And that's what I want people to get from tea. And then anise opens up our ability to receive intuitive messages.
Mm.
And one of the things I've also spent a lot of time on is understanding what are those intuitive messages, because all of us receive them some of us will listen and some of us may not because they don't know what we're listening for. And
Mhm.
so the anise is opening up that possibility. And as people are listening today, I always set up the podcast so that everybody has a healing session by the end. And so
Mm.
you're listening, but by engaging with the herbs and some of the topics and the way the conversation goes, we're actually creating change for everyone. And so by bringing the tea in, it's so simple because it's a habit that everybody has already. And now
Mhm.
we can make it just more meaningful. So I wanted to share the phrase that's on the package. So I'm just going to hold it up. And I know for you on the podcast, you won't be able to see. I've got bright sun today, so let me turn it a little bit. So in
Yeah.
the corner, there's a symbol for the chakras. So for
Mhm.
those people that work with the chakras, then you can understand where this tea falls because the color of the label is
Mhm.
in a bluey green. So we're looking at the heart to the throat chakra. So your soul seat, your soul's purpose, and then also being able to express yourself. And the phrase that's on the package is balance and flow is possible when we open to be present for our true heart's desires. Come home to your heart. And so I'm hoping that as people listen and season 4 takes off, that people really start to think about how they're approaching their day, how they're engaging,
Mhm.
and what are their messages? How are they hearing things? How are they growing from the way that they're living and the way that they're receiving information? So,
Wow, Michelle. Well, as a professional intuitive myself, I love what you've created here because you're basically habit stacking in a way. Uh,
mhm.
and the depth of mindfulness and connection to intuition that that would bring.
But isn't it lovely to have a habit stacking? Because when somebody said habit stacking to me the first time, I
Mhm.
was like, oh my goodness, that is so much work. And they had like 20 habits that they had accumulated for their morning routine.
Mhm.
And I turn into a sweat. Somebody tells me I have to do a whole bunch of things in a row the same way every day.
Yeah.
I can't do
No,
that. I'm
no.
like, how do I feel today? How do I feel tomorrow? Where am I going? What am I doing? And so the parts where you find joy in your life, to be able to take those habits and then make them sparkle. And
Exactly.
when we put that cup of tea together, I put mine today in a clear glass because I've really learned this last probably 6 months to really connect in with the color of the tea
Mhm.
as well as with the herb. And so I've where the dark mugs are nice, they feel good in your hand. It's nice to hug a hot mug of something. This is just so delightful, or a wine glass, champagne glass. I do all kinds of celebrating things with different glasses just to be able to see that color and let it reflect. And that's the joy and the fun because a lot of times those
Yeah.
glasses are in the cupboard. I don't drink wine very often anymore. And it's lovely when I haul them out and say, hey, let me put my tea in there. So,
Well, I've just done some research on the importance of ritual.
mhm,
And so what I love that you're doing here is kind of combining the elements of neuroscience into a day-to-day activity where you're bringing a deeper richness into your life.
mhm, mhm,
So how beautiful. And I agree. When I first heard the term habit stacking, I went like, oh my. And and I love the explanation you gave because what you're presenting here is something that's effortless
mhm,
and something that's meaningful. And when we have value and meaning, what a great way to start your day
mhm,
and
mhm.
sip on it throughout the day.
Exactly. Exactly. And if I make too much, which
Mhm.
happens a lot,
Mhm.
it goes into the fridge, it gets transformed into an iced tea, it might get turned into a switchel. And if I have just a little bit left, I might make ice cubes with it and then pop it into my water when I just want a little pop of flavor. So there's lots of ways I can still take the herbs and carry them with me all day long.
So I love what you're presenting here with the tea because we're really talking about intention and goals,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
how does tell me the significance then, any further significance with the tea and how it also relates to intention and goals, especially as a business. I'm fascinated with how you're incorporating all these elements.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, well, I'm going to say slange first, and I'm going to
Oh,
give you a cheers.
and I'll
And
say
then
Daipoja because I'm Ukrainian.
Awesome. And for those, and slange is what we say here in Cape Breton. So cheers everywhere else, probably in the country. But but thank you so much. So I just want to put the gratitude in at the start here and have a sip. So,
Mm, there's the gratitude.
mm. And then if we look at intention, so that was one intention, is
Hmm.
bringing that gratitude in, because gratitude's going to take us and lift us up. And intention, what I find is a lot of people, I was thinking about this today, they want to feel good. So they'll
Hmm.
do something like a bubble bath,
Hmm.
or they'll get a really nice lotion, they'll paint their toenails,
Hmm.
um, they'll sit down and they'll have a chocolate cake, and go, I just want to feel good.
Yeah.
And it's all lovely for
Hmm.
about 10, 20 minutes,
Hmm.
maybe a couple of hours, and then it's done.
Yep.
And then you're looking for another way to feel good.
Hmm.
And so when you have intention and goals, you're actually going towards something. And so you may feel good, but you're feeling good for a reason. Because I want to. What do you want to be doing? You want to
Hmm.
be more than just feeling good. You want to be out gardening. You want to be walking the trails. You want to be connecting with more people. So if you want to feel good, you want to feel good because you want to feel good to go connecting, something
Hmm.
like that. But to be able to pull yourself into activities that are helping you grow,
Yes.
not just be present. And
Yes.
present is nice because people talk about being mindful and actually getting your focus in. But once you're focused in, do you want to just stay there or do you actually want to be something else? And that's what I like to inspire.
Well, I love that because what that means to me is that you're kind of creating from the inside out, right? So it
Mhm.
sounds to me like you might have a little bit of a formula here with what you're up to.
I do. I do. Part of part of my work, I went back to school. So I spent the last decade back at university. Now, I started in my mid 40s and finished in my mid 50s. And that was a voyage in itself. And I thought I was going to school to understand the body better. And
Mm.
what I came out understanding was so many incredible tools that
Mhm.
can lift us up. And originally, um, for the last 4 years, as I worked on my dissertation, I had thought I would be in movement.
Mhm.
And we ended up with needing to change some terminology.
Mhm.
And in changing terminology, it changed discoveries. And
Mhm.
so, where people were really focused on in the Touch for Health world,
Mhm.
they would call it kinesiology outside of Canada. Inside of Canada, we now call it bioenergetic wellness. But people were focused on how you muscle test. That would be how some people term it, muscle monitoring or gaining biofeedback. So information from the body. And that was the key tool. And I thought it as well. And then as I started to dive deeper in, I realized that wasn't our key tool. It's a fantastic tool, but there's actually other tools that we are using that other modalities in the healing world are not using, or they're using parts of it, but not completely. And then
Mm.
I started to pull out what were some of those pieces. And as we referred to the card deck across the pandemic, I created 2 card decks with colleagues. One was Touch for Health activities in a game form, which is in a card deck, which can be played by kids, which can be used by adults, can be one card, or it can be an arrangement of cards. So that's why it's in the cards deck. And in there, I had compass cards. And at the time that I put them together, I was starting to figure out this formula and how this formula was working. And I needed 5 cards. So I put intuition at the end. I
Mhm.
went, if you do all these things,
Mhm.
intuition results. So I thought, okay, that's great. Then off we went. People used the card deck, etc. We moved to a new card deck, working with art and affirmations. And what happened was when I went back about a year later to write the dissertation and looked at that compass set of cards, these 5 pieces became really clear. So I had already intuitively known they were important. I just didn't know their significance. And that unfolded as time went by. So we have goal setting and intentions, which we've talked about already. And intentions can be sometimes the quality of how we want to experience things, whereas a goal might be you want to accomplish something. So they can be slightly different. And then we have an awareness. How do you know the stress in your body? How do you know how you're feeling? How do you know when it changes? Could be by smell, could be by what you see, could be how you move. That's my area of expertise. And then we have activation. So some kind of thing that energetically shifts us
Yeah.
into the new space. So we
Yeah.
did that today with tea.
Mhm.
We did it with color. We did it with intention and affirmation already. And that opportunity then opens up all of the ways that we can hear messages, which is our intuition. And
Mm.
that's the formula I like to play with every day. I do use biofeedback, which is a part of the work that I do with Touch for Health and some of the other modalities that I work with. And that gives me some really valuable information if I want to know deeper into the body or I want to understand what keeps energy strong for people and what takes energy away.
Mhm.
But that tool is a part of what these other pieces are, and they're so important for how we live every day. So that's the formula.
Well, and I love how you've pulled this all together from your dissertation, which we don't know what we don't know until we go to share it,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So, and I agree absolutely. So leading from the future as it arises, even though we don't necessarily know, but our intuition does. So I'm curious then how this applies to business because we have intention, we have goal setting, and we also have financial planning and working ahead that we need to do. How does that work for you in this formula that you've created? Because let's face it, business is business, and sometimes it's like, okay, is it the bottom line or is it more than that? And I'm sure you've got
mm-hmm,
a
mm-hmm.
little secret here you're going to
Because
share.
you can sit down and you can forecast,
Yeah.
or you can make your business plan and you can do those numbers. It's all about the numbers.
Mhm.
But how do you want to feel?
Exactly.
How do you want to be living while you're doing that? We don't write that down. We write, I want to sell X number of packages of tea, and I
Mhm.
want to be in however many stores. But we don't write down what you want to feel while you're doing that. How do you want your customer to feel as they're receiving your product? And then what is your ultimate goal of even having that business? And maybe you have your 5-year plan, but again, that 5-year plan is about a growth package. And how do you want to feel? How do you want the product to evolve? And if you don't ask those kinds of questions, then you can have the product there, but the product may never grow because your focus has been on the sales part. Not that that's not important, but there's a quality shift that's going to happen. But you need to also look at what that quality is and the kinds of relationships you want to have as you go along. It might be with other business owners. It might be things like being a part of the Chamber of Commerce and really getting in a network with other business owners. But you might decide you want to be in with, in my case, maybe more tea people
Mhm.
and, hooking up with other associations, other people doing beverages. And that stuff might not show up in your business plan, but it does show up when you start to put your goals and intentions together and you start to build a formula around it. And then you do an activation that creates ease and flow. So you don't go, oh, I have to do all these extra things so that I can get it. And my business plan was bigger than I thought it was going to be. No, what you want to do is you want to set it in motion. And then you've set a frequency that information is going to find you. It's like a little magnet. And so I want to work with more people in the business world. All of a sudden, you start having these connections with different people in your community. Or I want to have more people that I can talk to about tea. And then all of a sudden, some community groups say, we're going to throw a fundraiser. And right there, you've already got, that's what I was looking for. And boop, you're in there. Not that you need to organize it. They already need you. You just need to show up and be present for them. So it's a different way of looking at how you can accomplish things. And in business, we don't think about it energetically. We're always
Mhm.
thinking that linear road model of the achievement, the status, that success line. And there's a quality that we want to live with.
Wow. So brilliantly explained, and also recognizing this need for this kind of approach
Mhm.
because it's very powerful, and business is evolving and needs to evolve. So as we bring, I always say that if you haven't done this work first, your business plan is it, it's not really necessarily going to go in the direction you want it to, because you've missed this very important piece. Would you agree with that?
I totally, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And for me, I get I get stressed looking at the numbers.
Hmm.
Because if I forecast on there, I want to be having sold so many things
Yeah,
by the end of the month and it hasn't happened,
yeah.
then I'm a failure. But was I a failure if I set it up because I had these different quality pieces and I didn't quite follow the linear path and I ended up doing a couple projects I didn't know I was going to be doing? I met some people and those people needed more tea. And then
Exactly.
all of a sudden, I didn't do the sale at the end of my projected month, but I had this amazing piece that happened for next month. But that was because I let the intuition come in. I let myself follow that pathway, not saying that I was just haphazardly following it, because when we're doing this work and goal setting all the time, you really get into that formula. You do have an idea where you're heading and what's important and what's not important. Um, but you
And
do
that,
have also the details that fall away where
mhm,
you would have thought those were important on the linear road,
yeah.
but they're not important for the road that wanders. And then all of a sudden those things kind of fall away and they don't become important and you don't even realize they disappeared because your focus is what's coming at you and what is resonating and you're saying, "Oh, I need to go this way and I need this inspiration," which is how I met you, right?
I know, and it's so exciting because, it really puts into play this whole idea of effortlessness, right?
Hmm.
And this significant amount of trust that goes into your intuition. And when we kind of follow the formula, it's just so much easier. It literally dissolves the stress.
Hmm.
And when you're coming, I always describe that as being such a really clean place. And when you have clarity, you've got everything. Now you can move forward, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's interesting because if I'm going to go into the kitchen to cook,
Hmm.
I have to clean the kitchen first
Yeah.
and then I can start. And it's almost that same piece. You know what your goal is. You want to bake the cake, but you want
Yes.
to make sure you put everything in the place so the cake, is comes together easily.
Yes.
But if you've got stuff all over the place and you move the bowl to the other side of the room, then you forget to add something because it was in the cupboard, but you forgot because you weren't in your pattern. All these things can happen. But if you set yourself up so it's clear, the focus is there, and off you go.
So, so let me ask you then, as we're kind of talking about awareness and intuition, how, and I think you've answered the question, but I want to ask it anyways, just for those who are listening, how do you know what you know intuitively?
Hmm.
Because it's easy for you because you're in it, but maybe someone who is kind of still playing with this, what would you tell them? How would you answer that question?
Hmm. What I've started to do, and this is where my background in movement has really played a role. And I
Yeah.
trained as a dancer, so I trained I trained how to put the body in certain positions and
Yeah.
not feel things, right? Because you were always pushing the body to
Right.
accomplish the task you had at hand. So I've had to repair my body as a result of all those pieces and find ease and flow. But this last little bit, I've really focused on what is my body telling me where the stress is? And
Mm.
so when I'm teaching my Tai Chi class or my Movement Made Easy or the Chi integration, they're all energy movement based activities. I ask everybody to move their head and see what it feels like. And a lot of people already know they've spent a couple of hours at their computer, their neck is already crimped, or they were been in the car and the head's been pushed forward. They already know it's tight. But when you stop and go, okay, what's your stress level? And optimistic people will say, oh, it's really, really good. I'm an 8 out of 10, my energy's way up there. But then you go, okay, but what does your neck feel like? And you turn your head from side to side and it's like, oh, that's really tight on that side. And I can hardly move to the other side. You go, okay, so are you an 8 out of 10? Are you optimistically putting yourself there and ignoring signals? And so I like to come back to the body. What is the signal the neck is telling? When you move your arm up over your head,
Mhm.
do you feel individual muscles trying to get you there, or does it move in a package? If it moves
Mm.
in a package, then you're integrated. And
Mhm.
if you're integrated, you have the whole body functioning and it's all working towards the same goal. But if it's not an individual muscles or it's even an effort to move the arm, then you're not going to be integrated. You're going to be working with effort. You're going to have to focus on it to do the job rather than to focus on the outcome. And so that's where I've really shifted things to gain that awareness within my body. If I can't sit up straight, I know I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. And sometimes I can be sitting at my desk and I cannot find straight. That's why I have to go, okay, what I'm working on, I'm working too hard at,
Mhm.
or I did not set myself up well to be
Mhm.
successful while I'm working. So I need to go back, take some time, do some Tai Chi or do some seated exercises, get myself so the energy's flowing, and then come back to the desk. And now when I sit down, there's going to be no effort.
Well, I really appreciate that piece of, oh yeah, everything's fine, the optimist, right? Because optimism is great, but it can tend to overlook. So I love what you're describing here is very practical and pragmatic and very much an attunement and awareness, this expanded awareness. And I for one, appreciate what you're talking about because it does take some discipline to stop, right? And
Mm-hmm,
go, wait a minute, how am I really feeling? And what when I first met you, what I loved, it was like, wow, you taught us something with our ears, how
mm-hmm,
to massage the ears, and I could feel an immediate release. And
mm-hmm,
I thought, wow, okay, I want to know this woman better. So,
mm-hmm,
so tell us more about how this body movement all fits in together, because it sounds like it's, again, a part of this formula.
mm-hmm. So if we were to take the rubbing the ears, so people have
Yeah.
used that a lot. It's
Ah,
so powerful and it does so
great,
much
great.
great stuff for the body. So for those people listening, if you were to turn your head and feel what it feels like to go one way and feel what it feels like to go the other way, which mine is very tight at the moment. I'm laughing because I've done this already 3 times today with different classes, but it's gone back to tight because my intention is different.
Yeah.
I'm now having a conversation about season 4 of my podcast. So obviously that's a little bit stressful. So I've turned now. I could stop there, which is awareness of what does my neck feel like. But what I've learned in the last little bit is how much am I integrated? So how
Mm.
much am I using whole body? So everything, brain and body is all connected, or am I just isolated movements? Because that's going to be a lot more work. So
Yeah.
now if you turn your head, you want to see if you're integrated. So you're going to notice if any other muscles decide they want to come along to help you turn your head. Okay,
Oh,
so as you turn your head, notice what the belly feels like. Okay, and if you go the other side, what happens to that side?
mm.
So did you feel your belly engage?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't have that the first time. It was
Mm-hmm.
isolated. And that's because I said, turn your head to see how it feels,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the body goes, oh, she only needs to know about my head. That's fine. But now I changed my intention. How integrated are you? Same activity. But now the body goes, oh, I can use all those muscles because we work as a unit to help the head turn. That's how you avoid injury. So when we turn that time, if the belly engaged, then you know you have some integration. Now, how much integration? You should be able to see behind you. So if you kind of only saw to the corner, which is kind of where I got to, then you're integrating, but you really don't have a full range of motion. And that means you're only going to have a viewpoint to a certain amount. Your perspective is not going to be full capacity. Your ability to do a project or to interact in a meeting is going to be limited by your ability to understand the parameters and the focus. So what we want to do is we want to open that all up because you want to be your very best. You want to be able to see 360. You want to know all the possibilities and be able to hone in on what's really important for you. So if we rub the ear from the top to the bottom, you're just going to take your fingers. So if you're listening, you take your fingers to the top and just kind of pinch along the outer edge and just kind of roll the ear all the way down to the bottom. And then we do a second sweep, which goes a little bit further into the ear, and let that come down. And then the third run, your fingers go a little bit deeper into the ear. Just give a pull closer to the center, and your ear is going to heat up. That means we've wakened up all the systems in the body, which is fantastic. So we go to the other side, so we make it even. So this one, if you need your body clock to get on board, because it got knocked off a little bit, time traveling, maybe you've had a big event, you stayed up late, the body shifted its clock. So you just look at what time is it at the moment, and your body will then know how to set itself for the right time. It's great for a time change. And for musicians and dancers, people who need to be on the beat, that will actually put you right on the beat. So for anybody who likes to race things when they're nervous, this is really good. Very helpful for presentations. Okay, so we've done that ear rub. Both ears are now turning a little bit red. They're heating up. Systems are all engaged. Okay, so now if we turn the head, find out how much the range of motion is. So you're turning. So I can now see the fireplace behind me, which I couldn't see before. How about you?
Yeah, same here. Like I can see way farther than I could before.
Mm-hmm. So now, and I did say, what is your range of motion? But now if I say, how integrated are you? Now turn around and see what happens.
Wow, that's even farther.
It's even further. Mm-hmm. And now what we said to our body is, I want you to be whole.
Oh,
I don't want you to be isolated, which is how we train everything. I want you to be whole in one piece. And I want every part to work with every part. So I'm complete.
wow. I just love this because it's to include the body. Uh, I've certainly recognized in my life is what I want to do more of.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a whole bunch of wisdom there that I'm missing out on and the energy, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
so um, I love how you put all these pieces together, and there are many pieces. So, so just tell us about the kinds of programs that you offer.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
So
lot here.
yeah, with the pandemic, I ended up not being able to teach in a classroom, which I was teaching dance, um, dance to kids. I've done that for over 40 years. And I transitioned from working with kids to spending more time with adults. And that's where I really started to develop more about the awareness of the body and really integrating brain and body, not just assuming that the brain wants to do all the work and keep things going, but that the body feeds the brain and helps it to be its best. And that's where the no effort is, because it's nice and easy. In Tai Chi, we call it 40% effort. And a lot of us know 150% effort, but this is really dialing it back so you can actually feel the energy start to flow through the systems rather than push the energy. And then that's when you're tired, you need to rest after a workout, those kinds of things. It's a way of just being completely um, absorbing all the energy and storing it. So, so with that, I started teaching movement classes online. I do a lot of work with the seated form of Tai Chi, and that has led me to how you actually understand your body and how it moves, because you learn a lot more about your body when you're sitting down, which is really interesting. The other piece is different body parts can be reciprocal for other body parts. So if you hurt an area, you don't focus on making it work more. You actually focus on the parts that work really well, and you help to inspire the part that needs to heal. So I started working in that. And then I had the privilege of meeting this amazing fiddler, Colin MacLeod from Scotland. And he was willing to come and play class online, play for the class. And then after the first probably 2 or 3 classes, he started letting go of traditional music, traditional ways of playing, and he just started to play intuitively. And so now what happens in a class is he responds to what's going on for the people in the class. So I'm very specific when I start class. I set up the goals and intentions. I talk about an herb. I talk about the tea, just to bring that in. And when you have tea, I didn't mention that when you smell the tea for that first time before you go to sip it, it bypasses your brain.
Mhm.
So it's going into the senses and it's an awareness for the whole body. It has nothing to do with getting the brain engaged. And so this sipping action creates that transitional period for you. So I put that in to the start because then we're bypassing that brain of, it's still trying to do a list for you and it's still trying to solve a problem. And all of a sudden it goes, oh, just a minute. And it shuts off as the rest of the senses come to awareness. And then as we're doing the activities, Colin's been playing music for us and we just get lost in the movement. It's so beautiful. So we have about 45 minutes of just lifting everything up. So that's my Movement Made Easy class. We have Tai Chi classes that are in person, and I've had the privilege of having harpists that come and play, who just love to just play for us. And if I have one that's usually intuitively played, but if I have 2 harpists, which I had last summer, then they figure out ways of working with each other. One plays the tune, but the other one intuitively changes the different keys, the tones, the power behind the music. And that is able to go right up the spine, feed all the vertebra. It's exquisite. It just makes it so much fun to be part of a movement class. So, yeah. So those are 2 examples. And one more that I'll share is my Chi integration class. I've had I've had the ability over the last decade to play. And I've had students who have been willing to come along to play with me and watch this formula develop, dive into the different energy systems, play around with concepts that people have been studying. They have some knowledge of, some things you can't measure, but we get to play in and out of that. And so my Chi integration class has had over 20 renditions. And across that, we've developed a full protocol of ways of diving into the energy systems and then doing movement and opportunities to shift that.
I love the expansiveness of this. And it reminds me of, this greater intelligence inside of us that we are inviting to express through us, which is very exciting, depending on where people are in their lives. So I have a question for you. Tell me about neuro arts, and how your years of experience have created this special pocket and expertise to play in. And I think you pretty much described it, but is there anything else that goes with that?
Hmm. Hmm. Neuro arts, and that's a new term,
Mhm.
and it's things that have been happening for a long time, but it's a new term where somatic dance has
Mhm.
also been a term that's come around. It used to be dance kinesiology, and they reworded themselves into somatics. And somatics is expressing yourself through movement and transitioning yourself, coming through some different emotions. And what I realized through my understanding of Chinese medicine, I'm not saying that I'm a Chinese medical doctor because I'm not, but I'm taking the concepts of Chinese medicine and looking at movement and emotions.
Mhm.
And a lot of the emotions that we experience are the result of where the blocks are in the body. So when
Absolutely.
we get angry or judgmental or we have some resentment happen, it's not necessarily that anything really happened to you any differently. On a different day, if you were feeling differently, you would have responded differently. But today, you respond with some kind of a judgmental set of words that come out of your mouth. And sometimes we even go, why did I say that? I can't
Mhm.
believe I said that. And our filters are a little off. so, so what I've discovered is if you realize that those emotions are coming up and they don't really apply to anything that you're doing, you're just out of balance. And
Mm.
so if you're able to move, put yourself back into balance, those emotions settle themselves and they're no longer there. They're just gone. And
Love it.
so from that place then, if we take that formula, we set our goals and intentions, we bring in some color. Color and sound have the highest frequencies. They shift us so quickly, and
Mhm.
it's no effort. So we don't have to work through so and so did me wrong and he should have done this, I should have done that, I'm going to judge myself because I'm not good enough, all this other stuff that needs to go on. Instead, we just want to shift quickly. And so if we go to the arts, we can bring in the color, the sound, the herbs, the messages of the herbs, the messages on the teas with intentions. We can have somebody play music, or we can put music on that's in a certain key. We can then change what's going on in the body through the movement patterns, and you're in a different place. It's nice and easy.
So, based on what you've just said, this formula, and and I love it because you've simplified it, right? Because there's so much out there to know, but you kind of put all these different pieces together in a
Mhm,
really easy, simple way to understand. And I love too how you've identified that's how we bypass the brain. We get straight into the unconscious, right?
mhm,
That's where real transformation happens. So,
mhm,
um, this is very exciting. And
mhm,
here just a couple more questions because I know we're running out of time. So how do you use this formula daily? You talked about affecting body movement patterns, and how do you use it daily? And uh, how can people find you? Because this is just so rich. And one real big thing that's just coming to me right now is you're a real demonstration of taking something that is meaningful to you, easy for you, lots of wisdom and expertise. You've done it your way, in your own creative way. And my sense is that this is how you support others too. Like, what's their way? You're helping them tap into this.
mhm,
And that's really powerful. When you find it for yourself, it's not something you've read in a book somewhere, it's something you've experienced. So tell us more about anything else you want to complete with your formula and how people can reach you.
mhm,
They
mhm.
need to, they do.
So the the way that I'm starting to play
Mhm,
more
mhm,
is I've been collaborating with different wonderful healers. I'll say they're healers, but really facilitators because everybody heals themselves. But we've been playing with art, we've been
mhm,
playing with paint. So
mhm,
we've been taking the ideas that I've talked about and we put them into a certain formula. When you gather with people, this is the other key thing, I didn't mention this. When you gather with people, you make a connection, and that's really important because healing starts as soon as you engage with people who have an intention for healing. And then you start to heal yourself. But when you come together, this is what I love about my chi integration class. We all bring these ideas of goals and intentions in. We express the different ideas to each other. And then we all become a part of everybody's goal. So even
Mm.
though it wasn't your goal to begin with, you get to kind of piggyback along that line. And you might not have ever even looked at what they came up with, but now you suddenly go, oh, that is relevant for me. And that's going to allow me to do something different. And so I've tried to cultivate different groups and sometimes collaborating with different people, sometimes on my own, but to create this space where everybody can come together and as a community have a goal and then move that forward. And paint is fun.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to put their hands into the paint. I'll say put their hands in the paint. I still have blue from yesterday's event on my hands. But when you get yourself playing and working in these different facets, you let go. And it's just so fascinating to see what's going to happen. So those are some of the things. So those are one-ofs. And so when people want to find me, my new website, which by the time we air this podcast, I hope my website is up and running. It'll be the Greenwell Center. So it'll be greenwellcenter.com. And that's for the Greenwell Center for Holistic Health. And it's going to be the umbrella organization for my dance debut, which is my dance programs, for the energy, the key to health with energy medicine, which is kinetic energy integration. That's what key means. So getting into action. And then we also have my publications and my card decks. So we have two card decks as well. I'll say two card decks. One is four decks in one, but then we have our Harmony coasters, which are brand new coming out. And those ones are to go with those tea blends I talked about at the very beginning. So we have those publications under Wayne's Publishing and then the Cape Breton Tea Company. So we have the opportunity and Tai Chi on the end of that, Tai Chi Wellness. So different ways that people can engage in the activities. You know that it's all going to have a similar formula of how it's going to come through, but all of them are for creating community and opportunities. And we have people that come to class, some watch recordings of class, still reap the same benefits, even though they couldn't be there live, which is really interesting. And some who just sign up and they know they can't even attend, but they say the energy that gets cultivated by the group is so powerful that they just know when the time comes for that class to happen, if they can't be there, then they just are there. They receive that same healing capacity. And so there's all these ways that people can engage and be a part of changing the way they're living. And I'm hoping that people recognize then how easy it could be for them to be making changes.
You know, what comes up for me is you say that is that when we're going through change and transition, it's not always comfortable, and we can tend to isolate. And
Yes.
and I love what you said, where someone else's goal, you have no idea. Wow, what a great idea! I'm going to use that. So the image that comes to me as you're sharing all this is kind of the Canadian geese, right? And they all
Hmm.
take turns being the leader, and the airstream, that airflow that's created, makes it easier. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm. Hmm. And I one other piece that I didn't say is the podcast is
yes,
another way for me to make connection with people. So if they can't be involved in the movement-based activities, they're not really interested in painting with their fingers and getting into the art, that's okay because the podcast gives you another opportunity to find a way through a healing set to be able to come out and feel you nurtured yourself. But also, before you start listening to any of my podcasts, you set your goal and intention for where you want to go because that podcast is going to lead you down that road. And at the end, you'll be on it. You'll be engaged energetically with where you want to head.
well, and that's what it's all about. It's the vibrational frequency that our greatest aspirations and success are already exist vibrationally. So I just see you as like, I want to say this fairy godmother. It just draws everyone all together and says, woohoo, let's play. Let's really use the power of this because uh when we're feeling good inside, then we've got the energy. And so I just want to say from the bottom of my heart how much I appreciate you, how much I appreciate your work, and how I so appreciate that our paths crossed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this desire of both our hearts to just, this infinite intelligence inside all of us is it's on the move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate how you bring all these pieces together, your experience, your wisdom, and your courage and call to truth. Because uh, to live what creatively moves you takes courage,
Mm-hmm.
trust, faith, and look at the beauty that you've created out of all of this. And most of all, it's fun.
And
So
it's
I just want to say, as I wrap up and just leave it to you to wrap up, if you're listening to this for the first time, how wonderful that the synchronicity brought you to this podcast.
mm-hmm.
And if you are an avid follower, which I now am, of Dr. Michelle Greenwell, then how lovely that every time you listen to this podcast, you will have already been working with intention and the power of that to support you in your growth, whether it's personal or business. Because at the end of the day, when we leave this planet, we're working with what's most important. And I love that about your work. I think that's what you really invite. So thank you so much for asking me to be a part of your podcast today. And I look forward to more, Michelle.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. I was going to say I haven't been called fairy godmother. I used to be called the vacuum cleaner because I would suck people in. If I needed someone for a choreography, people knew to watch out because I would find a way to get them in regardless. So I appreciate the fairy godmother because that's a much better visual.
Well, it's fun. It's like sparkly. It's like let's go change the world and let's have fun doing it. And it's also about moving energy. All this heavy stuff, can we have some more fun moving it? And
Hmm.
that's what I love. There's a lot of information out there right now on somatic release. And I really appreciate the creative and the playful that's here because we do not need to re-traumatize ourselves, right? It's like,
Exactly.
okay, yeah, there's something here. Let's just move it along and there we go.
Exactly. And that's the other piece is to know that you just need to know how to move forward. And
Yes.
a lot of people go around in a circle and that's that goal setting intention piece is they get stuck in the spot and they can't get off the spot, whether that is still in the trauma or it's just stuck in today. And then today is tomorrow, but it's still today. It just never manages to get forward. And this is a way for people to take the wisdom,
Yes.
take the knowledge. We all have stories to varying degrees, but we have the approach that we take to take that knowledge and then go, how do I turn that into a gem? The gem that I had that experience and I can be different, or I've had this experience, I can bring that information forward for others, or I've had that experience and I am not doing that again, even though some of us do repeat ourselves. So for those that know my story, and I lost the ability to walk and had to rebuild my body, I lost the ability to walk again a second time because you fall back into old habits and the stress ramps up again and the body shuts down. And then you have to remind yourself what's important. So there are failures along the way. Failures I'll put in quotation marks because they were the aha moments of get it together. You can't just half walk the talk. You have to walk the talk. You have to make this the way that you live. And every day I do think about how do I want today to go? Can I pull a card? Can I have an affirmation? What cup of tea am I making this morning? All those pieces, just bringing it in. And so I thank you, Cheryl, for providing the space and the way that you brought the questions forward, that I hope people realize it's an ease and a flow. It can be gentle and it can be kind, but also we don't have to work so hard. We can really step back. We can still be on the trajectory. We can still be going for the goals, but it doesn't have to be because we're working so hard to get there. We can actually stop and play. And that's what I hope people find when they come to my resources. And my resources, the best way to find me right now is Linktree, and it will be in the description notes. But Linktree is the HTTPS : that lovely little piece, linktr.ee. So that's Linktree / and then it's Greenwell Center. And the best part about going to that resource is that you can scroll down whatever it is you want to learn about and then click on the button and it takes you right there. So for a lot of people, when they're listening to the different ways they could interact with me, it's like, well, where am I going to start? Well, go find what's of interest to you and then click on that, do some digging. If you end up on my YouTube channel, I have lots of playlists and they are in the different genres. So you'll see a tea playlist, you'll see Tai Chi Wellness, you'll see my Touch for Health. And so you can start to figure out what is it you'd like to be playing with? How would you like to grow? And then if you're looking for a class, then you can sign up on my website page. Currently that's dancedebut.com. And there is a free gift right at the top that'll pop out. And that's the top 8 stress releasers. I use those every day and I'm weaving them in and out. Rubbing the ear is one. There's lots of others, which the ears are still bright red. But being able to have that little card sitting in the mirror next to the computer, it just gets you started, gets you moving and flowing. So, yeah. So thank you, Cheryl.
Well, thank you for all those high vibe leaders out there. Wow, this is what we're up to. And I love what you said. It's about moving forward and, fun rocks.
Fun rocks. Okay, on that note, I'll cheer you one more time with my tea.
Yay! Cheers. Jai Bosha.
So that would be one way of activating everything that was just said. And another way, I always like to do some kind of movement pattern. We did the ears today, which is one. But for those that have not done Tai Chi before, I would recommend the seated Danyu. And the seated Danyu is just planting your feet flat on the floor and sitting so that you can feel those sit bones, your spine nice and straight. And if you're listening, if you're driving and listening, you can't do it here. You'll have to wait till you get home. But if you're listening and you have the opportunity to just stop what you're doing and just sit for a few moments, you're going to turn your palms up, put them out in front of your body, and you're just going to pull your palms up and forward, and you'll fall forward into your feet. Turn your palms down and push into the feet, and it'll flow you back. So you're just going to rock forward and back, and that forward and back is changing the pelvis, and the pelvis is going to be changing everything else. And those hands are just back and forth. And this is a way, to move forward. So from today's conversation, I want you to be able to move forward into finding the resources that you're looking for, making the changes that you need, and to be inspired to be the very best that you can be. So that's what I'll leave you with. And for those listening, I'm putting my hands together in front. Thank you, Cheryl. It has been a pleasure to have you on the show. And I'm looking forward to inviting you back, because then we're going to be talking about your incredible intuitive gifts with your business. So thank you so much.
Thank you.